New Thought Media Network proudly presents Having Courageous Conversations, where real talk dives deep. Each week we go beyond surface talk. We open our hearts, speak our truths, and dive into the stories that shape us. No scripts, no filters, just powerful, unforgettable conversations about life, purpose, healing, and truth. Join the conversation, because your voice belongs here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out our YouTube channel at Having Courageous Conversations or email us at yourshowyourvoice@gmail.com. Now, let's have a courageous conversation.
The views and opinions of our guest and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of New Thought Media Network, or any organization we may be affiliated with. Here at New Thought Media Network, we welcome freedom of speech and courageous conversations. There are many topics that can be difficult to navigate. Challenging the status quo and engaging in lively debate is important to expanding our understanding of one another, and life in general. Creating a peaceful world doesn't happen because no one disagrees, it happens from a willingness to understanding one another. In our programming, we strive to expand consciousness and assist people in creating remarkable lives. Your comments are welcome at info@ntmedia.org.
Welcome to today's episode of Courageous Conversations. Our theme is Transition as Sacred Thresholds, Bridging Change with New Thought Wisdom. Life is full of endings, uncertain in-betweens, and new beginnings. And while these moments can feel daunting, they also hold profound opportunities for growth. I am Cheryl Rogers, and I'm delighted to be here with my wonderful co-host, Mark Dupuis. And together we'll be guiding this conversation with Reverend Dr. Tynya Beverly, who will lead us through William Bridges' transformation model of transition, illuminated by the wisdom of New Thought philosophy.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I'm happy to introduce Reverend Dr. Tynya Beverly, who is a poet, author, staff minister at the Center for Spiritual Awareness. She leads the African American Suicide Prevention Project and facilitates safe Black space healing circles. Wow, so much to talk about. A retired chief learning officer for the state of California, she now cultivates healing through spiritual leadership, social justice, farming, and creative retreats. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Now,
and what a powerful woman Reverend Dr. Tynya is, that I'm so grateful I got to speak to and hear her speak at the Association for New Thought Network conference. So tell us a little bit more on this topic.
Yes. I love talking about change because I think change, if we begin to understand it, it is absolutely liberating. And for those of us who are in no new thought, we can sometimes get pulled down by the daunting feeling about changes in our life. But if we had a different framework on this, I suspect that we would give ourselves a little bit of grace as we move through some of this. The one thing that I want to share is that change is inevitable. It's a part of our life. And so it's amazing to me how we kick and scream and resist when changes come about. And if we could just put a different frame on it, I think it would help us to move through that process. And what I call, we get through it because we're soldiers. We're going to get through the change. But I also find that we're like the walking wounded when we get to the other side. Mm-hmm. So we can choose how we get through changes. Change is going to happen with us or without us. Mm-hmm. And I was introduced to Dr. William Bridges many years ago. My background is in organizational development. And so I had a major downsizing effort where I had 13,000 employees that we had to move from a manual system to an automated system and call centers. And folks were resisting and kicking and screaming. And when I became certified in this training, I got a chance to sit with Dr. Bridges. And he shared a profound story with me about how he even developed this model that I'm going to share with you. His background, he's an organizational development psychologist. He's a professor at Mills College. And he's working with Silicon Valley, and they're doing downsizing and all of these efforts and laying off people. And so he was using his organizational psychology background in helping these organizations. Well, his wife was sick and received a diagnosis of terminal cancer. So he decided to take a sabbatical. So during his time with her, he realized that the same stages that people in organizations went through, he found himself personally going through it with the news about his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, she received this diagnosis. She wasn't going to pass away the next day, but his response to this information is where the model comes from.
Wow.
And so he believed that, you know, once you hear information about a change, even if the change is a year away, 2 years away, we immediately start processing. We immediately start trying to figure it out. And folks will say, but you got plenty of time for that. But inside, there's a response going on. So he has this theory that when we're hit with the change is a two-part process. It's a change that you can see on the calendar, that on this day, this is going to happen. But then there's also an internal response that's happening to us, a psychological reorientation that happens to us. And he says the transition is what he calls it. He says it comes in 3 phases. There's an ending, there's a neutral zone, and then there's a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The ending means that you have to decide, I'm hit with this change, and it could be a wanted change or an unwanted change. And this is important because often people think, well, it's a change that I want. I want to have a baby. I want to get married. I want a new job. But we don't realize that we still have an internal adjustment process that has to happen. So he says, this is what happens to us. We have to end before we begin. Is that new information? Most of us, when we're hit with a change, I want a new beginning, right? But he says, no, we have to stop doing something before we start doing something. And if not, we move into that new season with all of the baggage from the old season, right? So his model goes like this. He says, there are endings. So something is over, something is finished, and we have to stop doing it. And what happens is we're hit with grief, right? We don't think about change and grief, but if you have to stop doing something, you may equate that to loss. And, you know, when we worked with automation and people had to stop doing the work that they were doing, their identities were tied to being subject matter experts. Who would have thought that that would have been something that people would resist or not want to give up and grieve? And then he says, after you realize, okay, this chapter is over, this chapter is finished, then there's this awkward place. He calls it the neutral zone. It doesn't feel so neutral. Feels like the twilight zone, if you ask me. You're in between systems, in between the old way of doing it and the new way. So this could be a divorce. This could be a death. This could be your kids moving out of the house, right?
It could be getting married.
Oh, yes. And think about that. So when you get married, that's a wanted change, right? For most of us, it's wanted. And so think about, what do you have to give up because of that change? What do you think? What do you give up?
Well, it's interesting for me because when I got married, I actually went through an identity crisis. I wasn't Cheryl Hendley anymore. I was now Cheryl Rogers, and I was Kevin's wife.
Yes.
And I literally had an identity crisis, and I only realized that, in hindsight.
Yes. Yes. And that's where the grief comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So although it's you wanted to get married, you didn't realize what you had to give up.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's what happens in most of these changes. A friend of mine recently had a baby, and I had to have this conversation with her. She says, I feel like an alien has taken over my house.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the baby. Everything is the baby, And I said, okay, I had the conversation. Well, what are you having to give up because of this?
Mm-hmm.
What chapter is over? But also we can embrace, what new chapter are you embracing? Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, Cheryl, that when you got married, you probably went through an awkward time where you were in between worlds,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your old identity and this new one's not quite formed yet.
Yeah.
And right. And
Yeah.
so it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the neutral zone that he says that most of us, especially as adults, we want to get to the new start. We don't want to spend time in the unknown. And here's the interesting part about the neutral zone. He says there's two sides to that part. The first side is chaotic and lacks direction, but the second side is creative. You see, and you're starting to let go of your old world, and you're starting to create what your new world is going to look like. But you have to be okay with being uncomfortable for a little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
Before you get to that new beginning.
When you were talking about new beginnings or things that are new, I smiled because Cheryl and I were just having a conversation. On Sunday, she spoke, and she brought the service together in a new format. So she had about a 10-15 minute talk, and then she invited conversation from those that were there. And I think it was amazing. And Cheryl was uncertain on how it came through, I guess. And I said something about, wow, change, shaking things up a bit, I think is awesome, because otherwise we keep doing the same thing, right? And yeah.
And also think about those folks that like to do it the same way all the time. And we come in and we change something, right?
Exactly.
And these folks have been viable team members, participating in our organizations. Then all of a sudden they're withdrawn. All of a sudden they shut down. And you think, I've done something wonderful. It's a great change, right? But people in our organization, some of them are comfortable with doing it the same way. So
absolutely,
there's a process that those of us in leadership need to be able to honor where everyone is in the process.
Right. Yeah. So this is something we decided to try out on the 5th Sunday of every month. So it's not a complete change, but it's an introduction to something different, and to see how that goes. But exactly, some people will be comfortable and some people won't. And it's going to be interesting, because suddenly when you start, you do something the following weekend that's in their comfort zone, that might even take away from what they actually enjoyed in the previous week that was different, because now I'm comfortable, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I share the model, the 3 phases, the endings, the neutral zone, and then you arrive at a new beginning. You see how that happens?
Yeah.
But there's some work that has to happen before you get to that new beginning.
Yeah.
And I like to lay over new thought principles when I'm talking about this model, because it begins to make sense. Because when we talk about endings and letting go, whether we're talking relationships, habits, identities, whatever that is, if you look at it through a new thought lens, release is not loss. It's a clearing of space for divine intelligence to work.
Beautiful.
Right? If we look at change from that perspective, that there is something, expansion that is happening right now. And if it wasn't because of this change, I wouldn't be going through this right now. How many times do we're hit with the change and we're like, oh no, I'll never get through this. And then when we get through to the other side, you look back and you go, wow.
Yeah.
Transformation.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I really believe that in order to grow and learn spiritually, change is required.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. And if we can begin to name the change, we can begin to do something about it. Now, the tools that we use are our basic spiritual practices that we use on a daily basis are the same tools that we're going to use to get through change. It's asking those questions about, all right, I've named the ending. Okay, but what chapter is over for me? What do I have to stop doing? And maybe you're journaling about that. Maybe you're praying about that or meditating about it. Or how about developing a vision board for what this new beginning is going to look like for yourself? Often when I find myself in difficult changes, I'm a cancer survivor, and I found myself having to self-medicate with this model. I had to use things like affirmations because I used to call my spiritual practitioner and go, remind me of my truth because I can't remember today, And with affirmations and affirmative prayer, it kept me in the consciousness, and I had to do it daily, so that I didn't get caught up in my illness and in the process. And so I was able to move through that, that process.
Right.
So is that what you would call positive thinking, or is? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's difficult to have positive thoughts when you're faced with challenging events. And what you'll find is that it's a point of focus, because if not, you're going to spiral down and you're going to get caught. And what happens is we get more of what we don't want. Right? So why not be in control of my destiny by using my spiritual practices, using those tools that will support me through this difficult time? I think we forget about those tools. There's a death of a loved one, a divorce. When people come to me for prayer, it's almost like they've forgotten everything, because change disrupts the flow of your life.
Right.
Knocks you off your game.
Yes.
So to be reminded that, you know what, you can get back on even ground by using your spiritual practices to get you through these difficult times.
And I would suggest, by what you just said, when somebody comes to you in a time of challenge, distress, that you wouldn't use the words, think positive.
Oh, no.
I would, based on what you were saying a minute ago, I think you would talk them through the steps. And I have a bit of a hackles going up because it's often used very lightly. Oh, just think positively and everything will be just fine. Can you explain a little bit more on how you would?
Oh, absolutely. I would not start telling folks, use the power of thought and take yourself and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I would have a conversation about, because of this change, what do you think is ending for you? What chapter do you think is over? What do you have to stop doing because of this change? It's coming from the heart. You wouldn't want someone to clobber you with think positive, because we have to honor where people are. And this person is in pain. They're grieving. And so the last thing that you want to do is be a metaphysical bobblehead, right? And do spiritual bypass on them and act like what they just said was not real. You know, we have to stay in the feeling part, because when we skip over the feelings, that's where we wind up packing our bags full of all that stuff. And we wind up at the new destination with these pack bags. And then someone says something and the lock pops. And then they get it. All of it. Right? And it's just unresolved change. It's just, we don't spend time. We're in a let's do it society. There's no time for you to process your change.
Yeah.
And then think about it. Most of us go through more than one change at a time. And so to be able to unplug and process, I mean, the big ones, people give us that grace, you know, if you lose a loved one or something. But when you lose a job or you're going through a divorce, people seem to, you know, the compassion is not there when they're saying, oh, you'll get over it. Oh, it'll be better. You know, it's like, no, we need to meet people where they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think people that say that are, and I used to be one of them, they're actually trying to make themselves feel better. Right? It's not about the other person. It's dealing with the discomfort that they're feeling about what the other person is going through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And but some of us, you know, especially in New Thought, you know, we don't want to have to deal with negativity. Well, the perception of it. Well, can we reframe that? Maybe it's not negativity. Maybe it is just another experience in our life, and that we need to allow it to unfold.
Yes.
You know, what is this time teaching me? You know, I remember lighting a candle and writing in my journal and writing affirmations like, I bless what has been and I release it with gratitude. Right? And opening myself up to what I didn't know what the new was going to be. I didn't know, you know, if I was going to get the word that I was cancer free, and I did. And I feel really blessed because of it. But I also went through the cancer journey with friends who did not make it.
Right.
You know, and so there's no way that I would tell them to think positive.
No.
You know, as I meet people where they are. And in this process, just allow it. No matter what it looks like, I bless it. No matter what it sounds like, I don't try to block it. If it's anger, and that's where you begin to understand, you know, those old models that we've heard many years ago, like the grieving process, the cycles of grief, right? Well, when you're dealing with change, those cycles are real.
Yeah.
You know, when someone has lost something, you know, they may be angry. They may be in denial. You know, they may be disorganized or be in, you know, depression. And so it's to basically to be able to be savvy enough, especially if I'm a leader in an organization, to understand those models like Maslow's hierarchy of human need. You know, the bottom of the rung is safety and security. And most people are right down at the bottom. And then here I come along and I want to do We Are the World, Kumbaya, social belonging. Self-actual, does it fit? No. So my communication has to be that way as well. If someone is worried about security because of a change, I need to talk about that with them. Not trying to pull them up and rise above it. They're not ready for that. And so the gift of allowing is real when we're talking about change. So you can see that if we begin to understand for ourselves and those around us, that there is a process, an adjustment process that we go through, then we allow more grace in the conversation and not judging that someone's taking too long to get through that change. You know, but if we know that grief is a part of it, maybe we will, you know, can open up our hearts a little bit.
Yeah. And everybody grieves differently, right? So it's the same thing. Everybody's going to handle change differently.
Yes.
So it's really giving them the space to do that and just being there for whatever it is that they need in the moment.
Absolutely. And I think we forget, well, what would you like someone to do for you if you were in this position? You wouldn't want them to do a spiritual bypass.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
you would want them to be present.
Mm-hmm.
You would want them to listen and to open up their heart,
Mm-hmm.
basically, and start there,
Yeah.
right? So I think that when we're dealing with changes and the world around us is full of constant change, we have change hitting us all over the place. And so just imagine that you're hit with one change and then you're hit with another one and then another one. We're running on a transition deficit. Most of us don't have time to process all the changes. I mean, to do it fully, there's no grace in with that. You know, it's like you're hit with another one and you got to pull it together and you got to keep it moving.
Right.
And if you understand that, because I do this with myself, I'll go, Tynya, sounds like you're grieving a little bit. Are you hanging on to something? You know, what do you need to let go of, Tynya, because of this change? You know?
So we're talking about acknowledging, first of all, the change and that something is coming to an end. And then really being introspective about what that means for me going through this change. What does it mean? What's coming to an end? However you want to do that, whether it's journaling or speaking to somebody or whatever works for you. And then recognizing that there is that grief process, which is basically letting go, right? And so how do I let go in a way that allows me to feel what I'm feeling and to honor that? And then now let's talk about new beginnings.
Right. So after you've done all this work with the grief and the endings and the letting go, or how about being in the mystery, in that middle zone, in the neutral zone? I think Jesus called it the wilderness, right? That 40 days and 40 nights. Ayala Van Zant, she called it the meantime, the in-between time. Between the time you claim it and the time it shows up. We're talking about faith of a mustard seed, right?
Yeah.
So after you've gone through that and you've gone through the chaos, you've gone through figuring out who am I now because of this change, and you've gotten to the creative process where you're co-creating what the new beginning is going to look like, and you sort of arrive at this place. But before you arrive at the place, there is another process that you may go through. Is in that neutral zone, you may have to redefine what your life is and what it looks like. You may have to replace some things, or you might have to relinquish some things. You might have to let some things go so that by the time you arrive at the new beginning, you know, it's just sort of like a checklist. You're like, I've made it, you know, I'm looking back over my shoulder, and you're kind of examining what you did.
Right.
So visioning practice, affirmations again, or some of the things, some of the tools that you would use, and reflection. I have an acronym that I use. I call it the ATM account. And my ATM account is affirmative, treatment, affirmations, and meditation. Those are the things that I use. And I say, maybe I need to take a withdrawal from my bank account today. And it's usually one of those. And so by the time you get to a new beginning, you have developed spiritual practices that are working for this season. And that's another thing is keep in mind is our spiritual practices are only as good as our current level of consciousness. So,
absolutely.
Right?
So on that note, because there's so much more to talk about now, going into spiritual level of consciousness, we're going to take a short break right here. Don't go away. Marg and I will be back with more of the conversation with Reverend Dr. Tynya Beverly in just a moment.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Thank you for staying with us. Cheryl and Mark here again, and we're excited to pick up where we left off with Reverend Dr. Tynya Beverly. What we were sort of just going into, I think, a slightly different topic, but still relevant. And what I just want to acknowledge is that we spoke about, the change, the acknowledgement, the recognizing the ending, what it means for you, and the grief process. And then also what I heard was from there, there's steps to take, to plan and to put into place and into action, however it is you are looking at your new beginning.
Absolutely.
Before you answer that, I just had a question. I think it'll flow into what Cheryl is asking. We've talked about major, like a marriage, a divorce, grieving over a lost one. Does this also daily? Do you do this practice on a daily basis, because we change daily? So is it a big one or a little one? Does it matter, the process?
I don't think it matters. I don't think that you're whipping out your workbook when you're processing. I think what it is you're putting that frame over the situation. And so I don't, when I'm talking to someone, I'm having a conversation with them. We're not sitting down like we're in a workshop, if that makes sense. We're able to talk through where they are and where do you want to be, in this process, and using the practices, visioning practice, affirmations, community support, mentorship, accountability partner are some of the areas. And then maybe it's reframing my thinking about divine order, and what that means, and expanding my worldview around where I see myself, moving in the next season. With the model, I think what it does for me is you could lose your keys, lose your wallet, and still have to go through this adjustment process. It doesn't matter how small the change is.
Right.
And your question is, do I do this every single day? No, usually when I'm hit with a change that has derailed or is stopping me from moving forward, is robbing me of my joy, then it's time for me to sit down and think about this. Okay, what is this that I'm resisting? Because most of us don't resist change. Is what we have to give up because of the change. Where the resistance comes in,
Right.
So I sell my house, and I want to sell my house, but the grief comes about because I'm going to miss my neighbor. I'm going to miss the familiarity in my neighborhood. The postal carrier, my doctor, my cleaners. Those are the things that we resist giving up, not the change, the big change, because most of us are soldiers and we're pretty good at managing change. But the subtleties of change, what Dr. Bridges calls transition is the piece that most of us don't manage.
Mhm.
So if it's still causing me grief, if losing my cell phone is still causing me grief, I need to sit down and process that.
Right.
I need to work on that. If is this a bleep on the screen and I keep it moving, then, I think I said earlier that when I find myself in those places, I ask myself those questions. Oh, Tynya, you seem like you're a little discombobulated. What's going on? You were hit with that change. And so what did you have to give up because of that change? Oh, my friendships. Oh, I'm angry right now. And I can giving myself a little grace. I'm pissed off right now. And it's okay to be in that.
Yeah.
And that's what the model has done for me. It has allowed me to be real with my feelings and to check in and have a place to process that it's okay to have these feelings.
Yeah. And that's a big one, right? In the society we've grown up in and the way we've been conditioned, we tend to judge our feelings, to criticize ourselves for them. And so it's really about really coming to that understanding that what I'm going through, it's natural to have these feelings and it's okay to have these feelings. And I need to feel them to release them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To just push them down is going to create something that's maybe going to burst and come out somewhere else further down the line.
Yes. Yes. We have to remember that change is not a disruption. It's a call to action. And transition is the teacher, because we're being summoned to rise with sacred defiance,
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm challenging, like you say, doing something different every fifth Sunday. That's creating an environment that's allowing your community to know that on this particular day, it's going to be something different. And that's preparing people to embrace what this newness, instead of resisting it, they open up. So being able to communicate to people, I have, when I'm communicating something new to people, I call it the 4 Ps. And I need to tell you the purpose. Okay. I need to paint the picture of what it's going to look like. I need to tell you what the plan is. And then I need to tell you what your part is. So as soon as I can tell you your part in this, then you can get on board, right?
Yes.
But think about it. We're always talking about the picture, the vision. If I can paint, I may not have the plan, but I can say, this is what the vision is for this. Then maybe people can hang in there a little bit longer until I can get the plan together, right? They'll give me some grace. Now, okay, I got the plan now, right? Here's the plan. And now here's your part in this.
Beautiful.
And I found that is a wonderful way to communicate difficult information. As a leader, I've got to move this organization forward, whether I want to move ahead or not. And I know there's going to be some resistance, but what I do is I take those baby steps and I begin to lay it out like I would want it laid out for me.
Right.
And then we wonder why people resist. It's not, it's what they have to give up. Now I'm not the subject matter expert anymore. You're changing the system. My identity has been changed. Right? So it's just a different way of looking at change. And I think if you look at it from this perspective, you give yourself a little more grace, in the process, and not so hard. You really should have yourself together by now, But when you think about, having to give up things that are important to you, like your identity, it's important. That story about the monks, that the woman that was on the riverbed that was crying, and 2 monks come along, and one of them, she says, I need to get across the river. And then one monk helps her across the river. And then the other monk is there talking to him. You shouldn't have carried her across the river. We have a vow of celibacy. You can't do this. You're not supposed to touch a woman, and the monk turns to the other monk and he says, my brother, I carried that woman across the river, but you still carry her.
Wow.
You still carry her.
Yeah.
And how many things do we carry like that? Well, we could just lay them down right by the riverside, okay, and leave them there because they're not ours to carry anymore. So what do I have to let go of? Got to let go of something, honey, or you're going to be walking wounded by the time you get to the end of the journey.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not pretty.
Yeah.
I am so glad this is recorded.
Blessed be.
Just saying.
Yes.
Just saying. Repeat.
Well, and it's so interesting because I think the same thing is said for anyone who's going into ministry.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's the same kind of process.
Right.
I thought you were going to say menopause.
Well, that too, honey.
Yeah, exactly. That too.
Well, think about it. You know, some of the things that I tell people when you're especially in that neutral zone are things like protect your peace, right? Don't engage in things that don't add value to your life. This is your time of reflection and choose silence as power. You know, it's not a negative thing. And then let go of what no longer serves you. Lighten the load. And we don't do that. We carry everything and the new stuff.
Yes.
Is that different? How heavy that is? Yeah. It just is way, way, way too much. So when people say, well, what does change have to do with it? Change has everything to do with it. If you don't process, because it will process you.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. And you said something in the beginning that it's a choice, right?
Yes.
How you deal with things is a choice. And so it's also about our perception of things and maybe shifting that perception to recognize that, you know, change is not a bad thing. It's just something that we all experience on a daily basis, just like death and birth, you know, and all these things. And so let's talk about it and let's manage it in a more what is the word? In a way that acknowledges us as a person and allows us to go through the process the way we need to.
Right. When I hear someone saying something negative, I'll say to them, can you put another frame on that?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
If you could reframe that, what would that look like? And have them do it, you know, versus me reframing for them. Because the discovery because transition is a personal journey. As much as I want to help you through it, I can't.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at that change through your filters, through your life experience. I can't give you my consciousness. Right. And so if people begin to see it from that perspective and they can reframe it, that I do have the power to reframe this. I do have the power to look at this from a different view. Right. I can allow it to eat me up, or I can be in a place of allowing and being open and willing, those kinds of words, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. What is this change teaching me?
Yeah.
Instead of shutting down and then, you know, getting stuck in anger, because we can get, you've seen people stuck there for years.
Yeah.
For years. And how do you get unstuck? Well, it goes back to what you believe. It's your belief system. And if you believe that something's happening to you and the world is got it in for you, guess what?
You're right. Right? You're going to be right.
You're powerful beyond belief.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's the most interesting thing is some people will say, you know, I've been asking for this for so long and it hasn't arrived, and you know, this, that, and the other. Well, what's the thought behind that? Because if you're saying it hasn't arrived and I'm waiting for it, you're going to continue waiting for it, and it won't arrive.
Well, I suspect when someone says it hasn't arrived the way they want it to arrive. The way they think it should.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or just honoring the blessing that is before us, that this it didn't happen the way I wanted it to, but it happened the way it was supposed to. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at it, it's like, well, I never would have thought of it that way, but okay, that expands my worldview.
Yeah.
I've got a whole different perspective. So it's allowing and embracing what is versus.
And I think you spoke about consciousness, the level of consciousness.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so there is a maturity, a level of spiritual maturity to be able to understand that and to be able to go there, right? Whereas sometimes we get in the way of ourselves when we're not at that level, we're not ready to go to the next step of processing what it is we have as a gift in front of us to process.
Right. Exactly. I say that we're only as good as our current level of consciousness. And I say that because sometimes we think that we process the change and we're good with it, right? We're finished with it, especially the big ones like death. And then all of a sudden you're growing along and you're going through transformations and you're expanding and you're on the spiritual quest and you're discovering who you are. And then all of a sudden that change that you went through years ago, guess what? You got a new level of awareness and consciousness that now you got to process that change through that.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right, is that, the consciousness is only where you are currently. That's it. And don't think that it's over.
No.
We're evolving.
Yes.
Goodness.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I did a talk a little while ago about, instead of seeing, change, see it as an evolution. Because it is a way of our evolving, our consciousness, our way of looking at things, our way of experiencing things, all those kind of things, because that's how we become who we are in this moment.
Yes. Absolutely. And I hope that, the listeners, Dr. Williams' book is Personal Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes, to discover that and to be able to give themselves another tool that will allow them to process life in general, And I think that's what Dr. Bridges gave us. He gave us a framework to navigate change, and be and allow ourselves to be okay with what's going on, and not try to block it. Look at it from a spiritual sense, is that, if this is where I am, then okay, what do I do with what I have?
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. So tell us about your book.
Oh, yes. My book. Well, the latest book is Dancing in the Key of Life, Words That Hug the Heart. And it's a book that is a compilation of poetry and sort of sacred expressions, is what I call them, lessons learned on my spiritual journey. And so that book is definitely an eye-opener. It talks about peace. It talks about life in general. And so you can get the book on Amazon as well. And then my next two books will be out in the next 2 weeks, actually.
Wow.
And so if you have my name, next week you'll be able to find my other two books. The next one is The Wind in My Braids, Voices of My Roots. And it's about ancestral wisdom that I've learned from my ancestors. And then the next book is I Have Something to Say, Dropping Knowledge, Raising Spirit. So definitely more to come.
Beautiful. I love that. So is Dancing in the Key of Life, was that your first book?
Yes, that was my first book.
Okay. And now you've got the two others coming out. And they all sound so wonderful, like really different from each other.
Yes.
But so just enticing to read.
Yes.
To me, anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the next one will be Kwanzaa 365. So these are, what's interesting is that people said, how did you write all these books? So
Mhm.
they're all coming out like in a short period of time. Well, the books have been written for a long time. And it took my cancer journey to kind of shake me out of my perfectionism,
Mhm.
and to be able to release this and say, I want the world to hear.
Mhm.
I have something to say, and I'm not going to hoard it anymore,
Mhm.
because it was never perfect enough. It was never, it needs to be cleaner, pristine. No, it needs to be raw. It needs to be just as it is and tell the truth. So
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
that's how they kind of, and then my years of doing Kwanzaa, is my book has rituals and all kinds of historical references for people who want to know about Kwanzaa. And Kwanzaa was Dr. Maulana Karenga, founder of Kwanzaa, December 26th of 1966. And it came out of a need. I experienced the Watts riots. And so there was this disconnect from culture, from African culture for
Mhm.
Black people. And he went to Africa and he saw a harvest called the first fruits, where the village would honor the crops, they would honor their elders, they would honor the youth, and they did ritual around this. And he brought that back. He was a professor at Cal State Long Beach, and he brought that back. And it has been a tradition in my life, like I said, over almost 40 years now. And it's all about the gathering of community. You don't give, and it's the 26th through the 1st. So it's 7 days of celebration,
Mhm.
December 26th through January 1st. And
Okay.
each day you focus on a different principle, unity, self-determination, purpose, cooperative economics, and you light candles. It's called the Kanara. And so there's 3 red candles, 3 green candles, and 1 black candle.
I saw that, and it's the same. It looks like a menorah.
Yes, it's similar,
Yeah,
except the
very
menorah has
similar.
8, right? And
Mhm.
the Kwanzaa Kanara has 7. And 3 are red, that represents the struggle of Black people. The
Mhm.
green, it represents the future and the fertility of ideas for the future. And the black candle represents the Black community.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
sure.
I didn't know that, but I did. I was working on a year-end message, and I wanted to include all the celebrations,
Mhm.
and so that's where I saw that, and I was like, "Wow, is that really like the symbol?" And
Right.
it is, yeah. Yeah.
Well, a lot of folks don't know about it, but I think folks are awakening to it.
Yes,
And they're like, wait a minute, I heard something about that. Tell me more about that.
yes,
And so
definitely.
when I get that, the opening is there for me to share, that there is. And I let people know it's not a religious celebration, it's a cultural celebration.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. I think that's important to
Can you
celebrate our
just
cultures.
tell us a bit about your spiritual center?
Yes, the Center for Spiritual Awareness in West Sacramento, California. We call it Ground Zero for Love. And we have a very diverse community where we have 300 to 400 members in our community. Yep, the Church Love is building. That is us. We have an awesome children's ministry. We have a praise and worship ministry, great choir, wonderful pastor, and we have a big social justice ministry that includes racial healing. It includes our white affinity group. It has the Kwanzaa is a part of that. We have Authentic Voices, which is a diversity and inclusion diversity readers theater. And so you can go on the website at csasacramento.org and you can find out about a lot of our activities that we're involved in. I am a social justice farmer. And so I set up a farm stand at my church every Sunday from what's left over from our farmers markets. I have a list of 20 cooperative farmers, and they gladly allow me to pick up their their produce that they're not able to sell, can't sell, or have too much of. And then I'm able to give that back to my community. And I realized that even in my church, which it's an abundant center, we still have a food desert in my community. And so I'm teaching people how to grow. I'm teaching families how to grow, and using what we do in growing and transferring that into life skills. You know, the planting, the plucking up, cultivating, all of that.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so wonderful.
Cultivating community. I get it. Cultivating community.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a place for everyone. So we love it.
Sounds wonderful. And it sounds like you're doing such amazing things, Reverend Dr. Tynya Beverly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's such an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
Oh, when I was talking to you, I knew I had to ask you. And you know, you just proved today what a powerhouse you are. Like, you know, wow. So if there was one thing you wanted to leave our listeners with today, what would that be?
I would say for people to carry your joy forward. You know, stop allowing the world to snuff out your joy. Allow joy to be the priority. Put joy on your calendar. Put joy all around you, because I think it's going to be one of the things that's going to be able to pull us through what we're experiencing right now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. And in closing, Mark, do you have anything you would like to share?
Just okay. I'm going to say, press play. Press play.
Listen again.
Pardon me?
Are you saying listen again?
Exactly. Go to the YouTube station and play this awesome recording again.
Absolutely.
Just packed with information.
So packed with information.
Thank you so much, Tynya.
Yes.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So as we've discovered today, transitions are not simply challenges to endure. They are sacred thresholds inviting us into deeper wisdom and renewal. By embracing endings, honoring the neutral zone, and stepping boldly into new beginnings, we can transform change into a path of empowerment. And thanks again, Reverend Dr. Tynya. We will certainly be in touch and invite you next year, because I know you have a lot more to say, and we would love to hear about some of the stories in your books.
Okay.
So
I would love to share them.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So everybody, please like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.